The saloon doors swung shut behind Evangeline Rose with a finality that echoed through the dusty street of Redemption Creek. Her emerald dress, once the finest silk money could buy, now bore the stains of 1,000 regrets and the weight of whispered scandals that followed her like tumbleweeds in the desert wind. She clutched her worn leather satchel closer to her chest, feeling the eyes of the townspeople burning into her back like brands on cattle. She had come to this godforsaken place seeking what its name promised, redemption. But even here, at the edge of civilization, her reputation had preceded her like a dark storm cloud. The notorious Evangeline Rose, former mistress to railroad barons and politicians, the woman whose beauty had toppled empires and whose secrets could destroy kingdoms. As she walked down the main street, her heels clicking against the wooden planks like a countdown to judgment, she noticed him. Leaning against the hitching post outside the general store stood a man who seemed carved from the very mountains themselves. Tall and broad-shouldered, with dark hair that caught the afternoon sun like polished obsidian, he watched her approach with eyes the color of storm clouds. Unlike the other men in town who either leered with hunger or turned away in disgust, this stranger's gaze held something different, a quiet intensity that made her pulse quicken despite herself. His leather chaps hugged powerful thighs, and the way he wore his gun belt spoke of a man comfortable with violence but not eager for it. "Ma'am," he said, tipping his hat as she passed. His voice was like aged whiskey, smooth and burning all at once. Evangeline paused, surprised by the simple courtesy. "Sir," she replied, her voice barely above a whisper. "Name's Cole Maverick," he said, straightening to his full imposing height. "Heard you might be looking for work." She studied his face, searching for the familiar signs of masculine hunger or moral judgment, but found neither. Instead, she saw something that made her heart skip like a stone across water: genuine interest, untainted by her notorious past. "What kind of work?" she asked, her voice steadier now. "I run a ranch up in the mountains. Lost my housekeeper to fever last month. It's honest work if you're interested in honest living." The words hit her like a physical blow. Honest work. Honest living. Concepts that had become as foreign to her as snow in the desert. She had spent so many years trading her beauty for survival, her body for security, that she had almost forgotten what it felt like to earn something through simple labor. I don't know if I'm suited for such work," she admitted, her cheeks burning with shame. Cole's eyes softened, and he stepped closer, close enough that she could smell the intoxicating mixture of leather and sage that seemed to cling to him like a second skin. "Everyone deserves a chance to start over, Miss Rose. The mountains don't care about your past, only about who you choose to be today." That evening, as Evangeline sat in the small room above the saloon that served as the town's only boarding house, she found herself thinking about the mysterious cowboy's offer. Through her window, she could see the mountains rising like ancient guardians against the star-scattered sky, and for the first time in years she felt something stirring in her chest that might have been hope. A soft knock at her door interrupted her thoughts. When she opened it, she found Cole standing in the hallway, his hat in his hands, looking almost boyish despite his obvious masculinity. "I wanted to give you this," he said, extending a small bundle wrapped in brown paper. "Thought you might need supplies for the journey if you decide to come." Inside the package, she found simple but quality clothing: a riding skirt, a cotton blouse, sturdy boots. Practical clothes for a practical life. The gesture was so unexpectedly kind that tears pricked at her eyes. "Why?" she whispered. "Why would you help someone like me?" Cole's hand reached out as if to touch her face, then stopped, hovering in the space between them like a promise. "Because I believe in second chances, Evangeline. And because something tells me you're worth believing in." As he turned to leave, Evangeline felt something shift inside her chest, like ice beginning to thaw after a long, brutal winter. The journey to Cole's ranch took them through terrain that seemed to exist outside of time itself. As their horses climbed the winding mountain trails, Evangeline felt the weight of her past beginning to lift with each mile they traveled away from civilization. The air grew thinner and cleaner, carrying the scent of pine and possibility. Cole rode ahead, his body moving with his horse in perfect harmony, like they were two parts of the same wild creature. Evangeline found herself mesmerized by the play of muscles beneath his shirt, the confident way he handled the reins, the occasional glimpse of his profile when he turned to check on her progress. "Tell me about your ranch," she called out during one of their rest stops, desperate to fill the charged silence that seemed to crackle between them like lightning before a storm. Cole's eyes took on a distant look as he gazed up at the peaks surrounding them. "It's not much by most standards. A few hundred head of cattle, some horses. But it's mine, earned with sweat and blood and honest work." He paused, his gaze finding hers. "It's a place where a person can be who they really are, without pretense or performance." The word struck her like an arrow finding its mark. Performance? That's what her entire life had been, one elaborate performance after another. She had played the role of the seductive mistress, the sophisticated companion, the dangerous woman, until she had almost forgotten who she really was beneath all the masks. As the sun began its descent toward the western peaks, painting the sky in shades of fire and gold, they finally crested the last ridge. Below them spread a valley that took Evangeline's breath away, green pastures dotted with cattle, a crystal-clear stream winding through the center, and nestled against a grove of aspens, a modest but well-built ranch house that seemed to grow from the earth itself. "It's beautiful," she breathed and meant it. "It's home," Cole replied simply, but she caught the note of pride in his voice. That first evening, as Evangeline prepared a simple meal in the ranch house kitchen, she felt something she hadn't experienced in years: peace. The kitchen was clean and functional, with copper pots that gleamed in the lamplight and windows that looked out over the valley. It was a far cry from the opulent dining rooms and fancy restaurants she was accustomed to, but it felt more real than anything she had known. Cole sat at the wooden table, cleaning his rifle with practiced efficiency. The domestic scene should have felt ordinary, but there was nothing ordinary about the way her pulse quickened every time he looked up at her, or the way the lamplight caught the strong line of his jaw. "You don't have to stay, you know," he said suddenly, his voice quiet. "If this life isn't what you want, if you find it too simple." Evangeline set down the wooden spoon she had been using to stir the stew and turned to face him fully. "What makes you think I want anything else? A woman like you, you're used to finer things. Silk dresses, fancy parties, men who can give you jewels and carriages." The assumption stung, partly because it was true and partly because she realized how much she wanted it not to be. "You don't know anything about what I want," she said, her voice sharper than she intended. Cole set down his rifle and stood, moving toward her with that predatory grace that made her knees weak. When he was close enough that she could feel the heat radiating from his body, he stopped. "Then tell me," he said, his voice low and rough. "Tell me what you want, Evangeline." The question hung between them like a challenge, and Evangeline found herself drowning in the storm-gray depths of his eyes. What did she want? For so long she had wanted only survival, only security. But standing here in this simple kitchen, with this complicated man looking at her like she was something precious, she realized she wanted something she had never dared to dream of. "I want to be clean," she whispered, the words torn from somewhere deep inside her soul. "I want to be worthy of this. Of you." Cole's hand came up to cup her cheek, his thumb tracing the line of her cheekbone with infinite gentleness. "You already are, darling. You just don't know it yet." Outside, the mountain wind sang through the pines, and inside the warm kitchen, two damaged souls began the slow, careful dance of healing. 3 weeks had passed since Evangeline's arrival at the ranch, and she had thrown herself into the work with a determination that surprised them both. Her soft hands had grown calloused from washing clothes and tending the vegetable garden, her pale skin had taken on a healthy glow from working in the mountain sun, and her elaborate hairstyles had given way to simple braids that swayed as she moved. Cole watched her transformation with a mixture of admiration and growing desire that threatened to consume him. She was beautiful in her silk and jewels, but she was magnificent in simple cotton and honest sweat. The way she hummed while she worked, the gentle way she spoke to the horses, the fierce concentration on her face as she learned to milk the cow, every small moment carved itself deeper into his heart. But he could see the shadows that still haunted her eyes, the way she sometimes flinched when he moved too quickly, the careful distance she maintained between them even as the attraction crackled like a live wire. She was holding something back, some secret that kept her from fully embracing the new life she was building. The truth came out on a night when the autumn wind howled down from the peaks like a living thing. They sat before the fireplace in the main room, Evangeline mending one of his shirts while Cole worked on repairing a bridle. The domestic scene felt so right, so natural, that it made his chest ache with longing. "Cole," Evangeline said suddenly, her voice barely audible above the crackling flames. "There are things about my past, things you should know before." "Before what?" he asked gently, setting aside his work to give her his full attention. She set down the shirt with trembling hands, her eyes fixed on the fire as if she could find courage in its dancing flames. "Before you decide whether you want me to stay." The words hung between them like a blade, and Cole felt his heart clench with fear. Not fear of what she might tell him, but fear that she might leave. "My past is a scandal," she whispered, the words falling like stones into still water. "I was the mistress of Senator Harrison for 3 years. Before that, it was Railroad Baron Marcus Whitfield. And before that—" She closed her eyes as if the memories were too painful to bear. "I've been many men's secret shame, Cole. I've traded my body for security, my dignity for survival. I'm not the innocent woman you think I am." Cole was quiet for a long moment, processing her words. When he finally spoke, his voice was steady and sure. "Is that what you think? That I see you as innocent?" Evangeline's eyes flew open, surprise flickering across her features. "Evangeline," he said, moving from his chair to kneel before her, taking her hands in his calloused ones. "I've known who you were from the moment I saw you. Your reputation preceded you to Redemption Creek by weeks." "Then why?" she breathed, confusion and pain warring in her voice. "Why did you offer me work? Why did you bring me here?" Cole's hands tightened on hers, his storm-gray eyes burning with an intensity that made her breath catch. "Because I looked into your eyes and saw a woman who was tired of running. A woman who wanted something real, something clean. And because—" He paused, seeming to gather courage. "Because I've been waiting my whole life for someone brave enough to start over." "I'm not brave," she protested. "I'm a coward. I've spent years taking the easy path, selling myself to the highest bidder." "The easy path?" Cole's voice was incredulous. "Evangeline, you survived. In a world that would have destroyed a weaker woman, you found a way to endure. That's not cowardice, that's strength." Tears began to flow down her cheeks, years of shame and self-hatred finally finding release. "But the things I've done, the men I've been with—" Cole released her hands and cupped her face instead, his thumbs gently wiping away her tears. "Our future starts clean," he said firmly. "In your time when you're ready. The past is just that, past. What matters is who you choose to be from this moment forward." The firelight danced across his features, highlighting the sincerity in his eyes, the strength in his jaw, the tenderness in his touch. Evangeline felt something breaking open inside her chest, like ice cracking under the warmth of spring sun. "I want to be worthy of you," she whispered. "You already are," he replied, his voice rough with emotion. "You've always been worthy, Evangeline. You just needed someone to remind you." As the fire burned low and the mountain wind sang its ancient song outside, they sat together in the warm glow of acceptance and growing love, two souls finding redemption in each other's arms. The first snow of winter arrived like a blessing, blanketing the valley in pristine white that seemed to wash the world clean. Evangeline stood at the kitchen window, watching the flakes dance in the morning light, and marveled at how different she felt from the broken woman who had arrived at the ranch months ago. Her reflection in the glass showed a face that glowed with health and contentment, eyes that sparkled with life instead of haunted shadows. The work had changed her body too. She was stronger now, her movements more confident, her posture straighter. But the greatest change was in her heart, which had slowly opened like a flower turning toward the sun. Cole found her there, slipping his arms around her waist from behind, his chin resting on the top of her head. The gesture was so natural, so right, that it took her breath away. Over the past weeks, their relationship had deepened into something beautiful and pure, stolen glances across the dinner table, hands that lingered when they passed each other in the hallway, conversations that stretched long into the night by the fireplace. "Beautiful morning," he murmured against her hair, his breath warm against her scalp. Beautiful everything, she replied, leaning back into his solid warmth. They had been dancing around their desire for weeks now, the tension building like pressure in a steam kettle. Every accidental touch sent electricity through her veins. Every smile from him made her heart race like a wild Mustang. She knew he was waiting for her to make the choice, to decide when she was ready to take the final step into their future together. "Cole," she said softly, turning in his arms to face him. "I have something to tell you." His eyes searched her face and she saw a flicker of concern cross his features. "What is it, darling?" "I'm not afraid anymore," she said, her voice steady and sure. "For the first time in my life, I know exactly what I want, and I'm not afraid to reach for it." Cole's breath caught, and his hands came up to frame her face with infinite tenderness. "What do you want, Evangeline?" "You," she whispered, the word carrying the weight of all her hopes and dreams. "I want you and this life and the future we could build together. I want to be your wife, Cole Maverick. I want to love you the way you deserve to be loved, completely, honestly, with my whole heart." The smile that spread across Cole's face was like sunrise breaking over the mountains, brilliant and warm and full of promise. "Are you sure?" he asked, his voice rough with emotion. "Because once I make you mine, Evangeline, I'm never letting you go." "I'm counting on it," she replied, standing on her tiptoes to brush her lips against his. The kiss started gentle, reverent, but quickly deepened into something hungry and desperate. Cole's hands tangled in her hair, and Evangeline felt herself melting against him, her body responding to his touch like dry kindling to flame. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard, their hearts beating in perfect synchrony. "Marry me," Cole said, the words more prayer than proposal. "Today. Right now. I don't want to wait another moment to call you my wife." "Yes," Evangeline breathed, tears of joy streaming down her cheeks. "Yes, yes, 1,000 times yes." They rode down to town that very afternoon, the snow crunching under their horses' hooves like nature's own wedding march. The preacher married them in the small church, with the blacksmith and his wife as witnesses, and when Cole kissed his bride, Evangeline felt her heart soar like an eagle riding the mountain winds. That night, in the bedroom they would now share, Cole loved her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. His hands worshipped every inch of her skin, his lips whispered promises against her throat, and when they finally came together in the ancient dance of love, Evangeline cried out like a wild thing, her voice joining the song of the mountain wind. "I love you," she gasped against his shoulder as waves of pleasure crashed over her like thunder in the desert. "I love you so much it frightens me." "Don't be frightened," Cole murmured, his own release following hers like an echo. "This is just the beginning, my beautiful wife. We have forever to love each other." As they lay entwined in the aftermath, their bodies slick with the sweet sweat of passion, Evangeline traced lazy patterns on Cole's chest and marveled at the journey that had brought her to this moment. She had come to Redemption Creek seeking forgiveness for her past, but she had found something infinitely more precious, a future filled with love, hope, and the promise of clean tomorrows. Outside, the snow continued to fall, blanketing their mountain sanctuary in pristine white, and inside their warm bedroom, two hearts beat as one, finally home in each other's arms.